We'll just roll. We're live right now. Hold on, guys. Episode number 25 today. It's been 2 weeks since we've been done a pod. We got T Mike, the much anticipated third interview. T Mike, you are our favorite guest so far. All the
Thanks.
viewers agree with that.
Yeah, we just had to get you back on. I missed
Yeah,
it.
the other day he was just like, yo, we should go see T Mike. And I'm like, all right, let's go hang out. And I was like, we might as well just bring the camera and throw some mics on and call it a podcast.
Yeah.
We talk about the same stuff.
It's always fun talking to you guys, so this will be good.
Well, before anything, I want to say, if you go to West York or you knew us, everybody heard about Spike. His celebration of life is tonight. Absolute great guy. I'll just say one of my best memories with Spike was at Wilson when I won. When everybody's getting pictures with me, and we just see Spike come marching down, and he's like, I need a picture. And he's like getting everybody out of the way. But you both knew Spike.
Yep. I knew Spike well, and it was really a part of West York that you got to see Spike, and whenever West York was involved in an athletic department or athletic event, and he was a really good character that was fun and upbeat and was very passionate about West York athletics.
Oh my gosh,
So,
He was a huge part.
He had to be at more West York sporting events than anyone in history.
Probably.
He was at all of them.
Yep.
I think they're doing something to like commemorate it, cause like my mom and I we bought T-shirts. There's like
Oh, is there?
they're funding, I guess, T-shirts. From what I heard was to make a statue.
Oh yeah.
That's what I heard. The T-shirts are gonna like pay
that
for
would
the
be
statue.
sick.
Well, I mean,
The Spike statue? That would be sick.
that'd be cool.
awesome.
But I think they're trying to do something like that. I don't know the extent of it. They might hear about it tonight. They might talk about it tonight.
Yeah.
That'd be interesting.
And then also, we talked a lot about leading up to the jiu-jitsu comp. I got the W. That was the least. I didn't care about that. I wanted to challenge myself up here.
Yeah.
The mental battle. And you might know more about this, T Mike, but it is crazy how hard you train. I can go do 6 5-minute matches. I had one match there, my first match of the day I was all nervous for. And I'd say my heart rate got higher than it's been since wrestling.
Yep.
It shot up immediately. I felt fatigue everywhere, that adrenaline dump. I did almost get choked out in the first 30 seconds, but, well, that probably had a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
But it's just crazy how that competition and just the feeling of that competitiveness, like my heart rate has not been that high in any sort of training, no matter what I do.
Right. Well, just the psychological and the nervous system kicking in A, something that's very important to you, B, something that you know is serious. Like, it's a real competition. We're getting after it for real, right? And then C, you got, almost a choke out. So you got a little bit of survival instinct
That
kicking
fight or
in.
flight kicks
Yeah.
in.
So that's where you have to really dig in deep, and when you can, really start controlling your breathing again. Okay, because when you get into good diaphragmatic breathing, in through your nose, out through your mouth, you can slow your heart rate down. Okay, you can clear your mind a little bit and start making kind of objective decisions at that point, right?
Now that you say that, I'm thinking about the match. I didn't breathe at all. Not that I can consciously remember.
Right. Because your mind was so fixated on what you were doing.
Oh,
and you probably, in your later years of wrestling, never had that problem because you were so accustomed to, and you knew the atmosphere of wrestling match. You were fine with it, right? Right, yeah.
In a sense.
Yeah, but as far as familiarity of a wrestling match versus competition in jiu-jitsu.
That's true.
Right. I had a really similar situation because I've been throwing shot put for years, ever since I was a freshman in high school. When I went to college, I started throwing hammer, and I've continued throwing hammer since then. Throwing competitions are much different than Olympic weightlifting competitions, and I'm very comfortable with the atmosphere, the order of the event, how each competitor goes through. It's definitely much different setup with Olympic weightlifting competitions in that you don't ever go in the same order because you will change order. They'll shuffle you around depending on what weight you're going to attempt at. Okay. So because of that, it just threw me off.
Yeah.
And I was kind of out of sorts with it, and I didn't like it.
I think that kind of happened at the tournament because the tournament was like handled kind of.
It happened so much.
It wasn't like a very well like organized. To where like wrestling, you look up on the screen. Yeah. I got 2 matches. Okay, second match. All right, get warm, get set up, get mentally there, and then bam, the second that match ends. Now it's my turn.
You're on the mat. Yeah.
And then but at the jiu-jitsu tournament, they had like 12 mats, like all going at once. You knew what mat you were going to, but you had no clue what order you were in. Yeah. And pretty much you knew it was your turn because they would call you to the mat. Yeah. They wouldn't call you to the mat on deck. They'd call you to the mat.
Like right away.
Go.
You got to be here now.
Yeah. Like we're going. You're slapping hands on the mat now.
Oh boy.
And then my first match, they called me to the mat, and then they called me. I don't know the other guy's name, but then they called him to another mat. He was still competing in gi, because there's gi and no gi. I was only doing no gi, so he still had a match. And I'm like, all right. And then I wait another 30, 40 minutes after I got warmed up. They called me to the mat, and I don't know, it got to me. I'm black. Like, I don't remember. I took him down. I absolutely did the stupidest thing I could possibly do. Next thing you know, he's got my neck. I got saved because we went out of bounds.
Yeah.
And then after that, I kind of he yelled at me. And I looked at him.
I was so
good.
I knew exactly what was happening, dude. I was tweaking out because I was like, you can't go black. Because I knew for a fact, just like in practice, I'm like, you never make that mistake.
Yeah.
You've never, just think about it. You don't do that. You do it in steps, and you just skipped 4 of them.
Yeah.
I was like, you're just being dumb.
Yeah. And in the video, you could see I look at him. And then after that, I was pretty smooth sailing. But I definitely was in kill mode because I was so fatigued after that match. Forearm shot, calf shot.
Yeah.
And I can do 10 of them in practice, and it doesn't touch me.
But in that match, the first ones just drained you.
Oh yeah.
And again, this is how cool the nervous system is, because the whole reason we practice, and there have been some very smart people that have taken the smallest detail into consideration. I've heard about throwers who have shifted their practice schedule because they found out what the either world championship or Olympic schedule was going to be, and their event was going to come up in the morning. Well, normally they train in the afternoon. Well, they shift their practice schedule to be in the morning so that their circadian rhythm is more appropriate and ready for a real competition, because they're practicing at that time of day now, right?
That's like what the boxers do.
Yeah, exactly. So you have a lot of you could look at them as minuscule details, but they actually really add up to being very important as far as how well your nervous system and therefore the rest of your body is going to respond to said competition. So, yeah.
Yeah, just thinking about working with athletes, so I feel at least I was thinking about it when I have kids, I'm gonna make when they do competition, I'm gonna make that just an event. We're gonna go out, celebrate after, win, lose, draw, and just get them familiar with the competition aspect. But then there's the debate: when are you competing too much, not practicing enough? But I think the competition shouldn't be oh, we're going to compete, you have to be 100% at your best form. It should be hey, practice today is going to be a competition.
Yeah. And I keep bringing back track and field because that's my personal, besides football, track and field is what I did.
Yeah.
And I think it's important, like you said, too many competitions versus what's enough practice. And you have to remember that, especially with younger kids, it should be about development. On the flip side of that, if you develop a kid great and they have zero experience about a competition, then they're going to lock up and it's not going to work for them, right? But if you only do competitions and you do lots of competitions too frequently, then what are you actually developing?
Yep.
You know?
Yeah.
A good example of that was when pre-1991, before the Berlin Wall came down, East German track and field really did minimal number of competitions in a annual cycle. They would practice a lot, and then they would just go to like major or big competitions, hit a good mark, and then they go right back to practicing. And we're talking about mid-20s to like 30 mid-30-year-olds who were in essence professional track and field people, right? They practiced a lot. They didn't do a lot of competitions even at that age.
Yeah.
You know, and that's one model that you can look at. I personally think that we put a little bit too much pressure on our kids and we have too many competitions. I think we should do more development and then make the competitions that you have really worth it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that lots of competitions are not worth it, but are you actually developing the individuals the way you want to?
Yeah.
You know?
And it's like, from the wrestling perspective, it's like, what do you want your son who's in fourth grade to win the biggest and best tournament?
Right.
It's like, yeah, it's cool, but at the end of the day, it's like, no, you want that state championship in high school.
In high school, right.
Yeah.
And at that point, they're more developed and actually understand what's going on.
And the other thing too is it's like you don't want your kid to be burned out. I played football with a bunch of guys who had been playing pee-wee tackle football since they were like 6 or 7. They were good enough to go on to play college football, but they were burned out and they were done with it. So my father didn't let me start playing tackle football until I was a freshman in high school.
Yeah.
He and I talked about this. We talk about this still. Like physical maturity in contact sports should be something that you really take into consideration.
I also feel like if you start too young, like a lot of the kids that really started early, they actually like ended up just developing bad habits.
Yeah.
Because they've been doing it since they were 4, and a double leg doesn't look the same when you're 4 when you're 17.
Here's a perfect example of that. I have seen this, and from my wrestling days in high school, fortunately, again, I didn't start until later. We were always taught your knee doesn't hit the ground. When you do a blast double, you're like keeping your knee up. But to get little kids to understand how to change hip level, at least around here, I've noticed that a lot of youth wrestling organizations tell the kids to put their knee down. Well, when you put your knee down, especially when you're a youth wrestler, you have zero forward momentum going into that shot. And so there's a bad habit that I think carries across to high school level all the time.
And kids don't get enough penetration in their shots.
Right.
And then they get flattened out and like
they're long out.
That's the position of 95% of high school wrestling.
Yeah. But I think it stems from they learned super early to put that knee on the mat.
Yeah.
It has its purpose because they learn how to change hip level, okay? But now you don't have any momentum, which is exactly what you need to go through, right? So
yeah, I feel like you can learn, like honestly, even if they got into it, like from what you can learn from like the age of 4 to 12, you could literally learn from 12 to 13. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it would all be good habits.
Yeah.
That's why I like thinking about it, like hopefully I have a gym and I'm doing jiu-jitsu then, and it's just like I'll bring them around it.
Yeah.
Bring them around wrestling, bring them around it, and then it's like I'll be leading by example, get them doing push-ups, pull-ups at a young age, and then if they want to wrestle, they can wrestle.
Yep.
And then it's like, but by the time middle school comes, I'm going to be like, hey, this is probably like, if you have goals and aspirations to do good, this is the time.
Yeah.
That 7th, 8th grade mark.
Yep. So like my kids, my oldest is a freshman in college. Then I've got junior, freshman, and 7th grader. And we, especially I, talked to my wife and I said, I want to expose them to as many sports as possible while they're young, and lots of outside playing. Because that's how you learn. That's how you mentally develop kinesthetic control of your body, things like that. Not being in a rigorous practice 2 or 3 times a week. Okay, our kids, people can say what they want, but our kids used to jump on the couch all the time, jump off. My kids would get up on the stairs and see which step, the highest step that they could, to jump off and still stick the landing. And I love that, because I'm like, look, my kids are learning how to decelerate and absorb forces, and they're jumping, like they're having fun, and it's unplanned play. Yeah. And I think that's really important, especially when they're really young. All my kids have liked the idea of getting involved in track and field, and now that they're old enough to really comprehend the minute corrections and technical difficulties of each event, I think it's a lot better, because when I give them a correction, they usually can't apply it, right? But if a kid's really young, they're going to have a hard time with that, which is not their fault.
Yeah.
So, that's why I think playing is really more important than doing a specific sport and specializing.
Yeah, well, going back to that stairs thing.
Yeah.
I remember I had a basement with like pretty high flight of stairs. It was like down and then a turn and then the bottom, another flight of stairs down to the bottom. And I figured out I could jump off the top and like land
Hit the
on the
landing.
bottom. So I would just do it like off instinct when I was younger. I would just do it every time I went down there, top to bottom, top to bottom. And then I grew a couple inches and did it one time and whacked my head off the ceiling. Landed like flat. Never did it again. I distinctly remember doing that. I was like, oh, I guess I'm getting taller now. But yeah, I used to like set up parkour courses in my basement, like, jump over things. I would get home from school. I rode my bike to school.
That's awesome.
Elementary school. I would come home. Sometimes I wouldn't even come home. I would go straight to my friend's house. We'd play kickball, football, jump on the trampoline.
Yeah.
And I don't know, that was awesome.
Yeah.
And now it's like kids these days, like I feel like you don't see them outside running around.
I'll make a little bit of a broad statement here. I think one of the reasons that we have such an epidemic with ACLs with kids, especially in the high school setting, but I've seen young ones. I've seen kids in 6th grade tear an ACL.
Really?
Yeah, it's bad.
I've never heard of that.
Right. It's rare, but I've seen it happen. 6th, 7th, 8th grade, I've seen them happen. I think that our kids are stuck inside too much.
Oh, yeah.
They don't go outside and just play, ride bikes, climb things, jump off things, play in the dirt. Like, that's how you develop an immune system. Okay. You think about how these kids are also, we have a problem with heat acclimatization. Heat acclimatization has become such a big thing that football teams in Pennsylvania now get an extra week of practice to get used to the heat. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
crazy.
think about this. 40 years ago, so for all of the people that are my age, that means like the 1980s. There had to be less houses with air conditioning units than there are now.
Oh,
Okay?
100%.
I don't have any statistics to pull up on that, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say way more people have air conditioning nowadays than back then.
Oh, yeah.
If the kids were still going outside and playing instead of sitting in the air conditioning all summer, not elevating their total work capacity, then we wouldn't have this problem of heat illness, or at least as much heat illness. Because we've always, like, the National Athletic Trainers Association has done a lot to educate people on heat illnesses, but the number of people that are still experiencing those problems has risen over the last 50 or 60 years.
Yeah.
Why? Like, we're getting more educated, but we're having more problems too?
Yeah.
Well, that's because kids don't go outside and play as much.
I wonder how much of today's issues in our generation and just everyone in general comes from that. They're sitting inside playing video games. We're having this whole issue now with people mouth breathing instead of nasal breathing. Their whole facial structure is changing. Kids are depressed. They have anxiety, ADHD.
You can look at jaw and teeth structures too, because we eat more processed foods, so then our jaw and our masticating muscles are not as strong as they used to be a couple generations ago.
Yeah.
When you ate tougher foods, okay, and that's another thing. But to go a step further, you look at adults that have office jobs. Well, it's not healthy sitting in an office for 8 or 10 hours a day.
Yep.
Okay. We are supposed to get sunlight. Okay, and even if you put a lot of nice windows into an office building, you're still inside.
Yeah.
Okay. You're sitting. We're not meant to sit. We're meant to move. So that's another problem.
I heard sitting is the new smoking.
It could be.
That's what a lot of people.
It definitely could be, because you are creating compensation patterns, bad compensation patterns, bad breathing patterns, other kinds of habits that definitely are going to detract from your lifespan. You look at how people get stressed at work also.
Yeah.
That's another thing that's like the grind of industrial or white collar office work is not healthy for the human system. I'm not saying that I'm going to change the world by telling you guys these things, but if people were able to take some time and prioritize some physical activity, it would go a long way, right? Yeah. And I have 4 kids. My wife's a teacher. We are busier than all get out.
Oh yeah.
But so what I'm saying is, like, I understand real life problems for parents, but you still have to take some time and try to help yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, so I don't know if you've heard of Gary Brecka.
Yeah, I know. I've heard of Gary
Heck
Brecka.
yeah. So he was just on Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
I don't know if you listened to that.
I see like the trailers and stuff on.
Okay, so he's probably like my new favorite guy now.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because he did like 8 years of college in human biology.
Yep.
So the way he thinks about nutrition and just it's completely different than anyone else I've heard.
Yep. I'm actually looking into his methylation argument right now, and my bachelor's is in biology. I went on and got my master's in kinesiology for athletic training, but I have a biology background. So what he's talking about, the Krebs cycle, how it ties into methylation cycles, things like that all makes sense to me. What I'm trying to understand is where all the puzzle pieces fit in right now. So I'm doing a lot of my own research on it. So.
Yeah, well, I would say watch that podcast with Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
I'm probably gonna watch it 2 or 3 more times because the knowledge he dropped in there was incredible, and he was talking about all the basically literally what you just said, but about the sunlight,
Yep.
grounding,
Yeah, grounding is big.
red light therapy.
Mm-hmm.
I almost want to get one of them little red lights. I think they're not that expensive for just a real tiny one.
Yeah.
And just play around with it because that's just so fascinating to me, that this little light contraption.
Yeah.
But he was like, I could sit here, like he was like, I sell everything I'm talking about on here, but it's pretty much the same as if you go outside, you look at the sunlight, you ground, and you get a cold shower.
Yep.
Like you can pretty much get the exact same benefits.
The other thing, that I don't know if Gary Brecka talks about it, but salt.
He talked about it.
Salt has become a major enemy to lots of people. Do you know that? Actually, yeah, I take that back. I heard this from Gary Brecka. He said we need salt to help with the absorbing sunlight, but this was from a different source that I can't remember right now. But you can't make enough the correct amount of hydrochloric acid for your stomach if you don't have enough salt in your diet. And if you don't have a high enough volume of acidity in your stomach or volume of acid in your stomach muscle is going to do more churning action, and that in turn can kick up into your esophagus. So really, if you have acid reflux, it could be, it's not 100%, but it could be related to the fact that you just don't have enough acid in your stomach.
Well, which could also be 100% that you have a bad diet.
100%, yeah.
Yes.
And definitely, if your carbs are through the roof, you're gonna definitely be kicking your body into high inflammatory state. So, but I found it very interesting that for decades salt has been demonized.
Yeah.
We need it.
And fat.
Right? Fat has been demonized. I mean, you go back to the 80s, eggs were demonized, and they're one of the healthiest, best foods that you can eat.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and again, it goes back to how the food pyramid is incorrect. It's way too carb heavy, and what people really need to understand, our body needs cholesterol. We shouldn't be trying to get rid of it. The only reason you run into trouble is because your carbs are so high, your insulin response is so high that you never take care of the fat that you digested, and so then it becomes free floating, right? But you have to have cholesterol to make good hormones, right? So testosterone, estrogen, all the little ones like insulin and glucagon. You have to have, so back to my biology days, you have to have cholesterol to make channels that go through the cell membrane to take substances in and out of the cell. You don't have cholesterol, you start breaking down. And this is why people that get put on statins complain about things like leg pain or their legs being tired. It's because the statins are attacking all cholesterol, not just the bad cholesterol.
Or they get put on them statins and can't remember taking them statins in the morning.
There's that too.
Yeah,
Okay?
how does that correlate with a lot of the dementia and
All right.
Alzheimer's?
Right. Okay. So how much of your brain is fat?
Isn't it like 90%?
It's not that high, but it's high.
Yeah.
Because, all right, if I had,
white matter.
imagine I had like just a rod here, and that rod is going to be our model for the axon of a neuron. If it is just the rod, it would take a long time for the electrical signal to work its way down the whole length. That's not the way your body works. It puts these myelin sheaths, which are fat, and fat is an insulator, and then there's these little gaps. And so the way an electrical signal from your brain or anywhere in your body moves down an axon is that it actually skips like a stone over water. because what it does is it depolarizes, and then it jumps to the next gap, depolarizes, jumps to the next gap, depolarizes. It doesn't have, and that's why our nervous system can react so quickly, is because it jumps real quick rather than taking a long time. Okay, so if you put somebody on statins, you're going to start attacking their brain. So yeah, you have major problems.
Yeah, that I got someone real close to me. That's the one that his brain's just going.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of the generation, because my grandma was doing it, your grandpa was doing it.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's like an ongoing thing. It's just getting worse.
And again, I think the medical industry really needs to reevaluate how we're doing things.
Yeah.
We're doing things according to big pharma making money.
Yeah, that's what the food
goodness.
pyramid is. It's an advertisement.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
hurt yourself. So you can get on these pills.
Right, exactly. Oh, we got a pill that can fix that. Well, now I got another symptom. Oh, we got a pill that can fix that too. Right? Well, none of those pills are good for you.
Oh, yeah, 'cause that pill has this side effect, and now they have a pill to fix that side effect.
And if we really just broke things back down, and this is another thing, it's hard to come around and get healthy food even these days.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah. Because food has been industrialized so badly.
So they can make
okay?
money.
Right. So here's a book that you guys should read. I don't know if I said this last time, but Omnivore's Dilemma.
Yeah.
All right? It's a good book because it lets you see how corn subsidies, which are huge in the entire country, but you guys have seen all the cornfields around here. If you give corn to a cow that doesn't have the stomach or the metabolism to break down those starches, it stores all those starches just like a human does as fat. All right, so now you've got a marbling scale, which is completely absent in Europe. Europe doesn't even know what marbling is. In America, because fat does taste good, okay? Fat adds flavor to things. But because the cattle get so fat and they've got these huge deposits of excessive carbs that have been converted to fat, you've got fat in between the layers of and the fibers of the muscle tissue. If in Omnivore's Dilemma, they talk about how pigs can eat corn because they have a closer digestive system to like what we have. All right, cattle should be just grass. That's why they're designed the way they are. They have the teeth that they have 4 stomachs, they have specific bacteria in the digestive system to break down that cellulose, things like that. Okay, but look at how expensive true grass-fed beef is versus just the cut that you can pick up that's already saran wrapped in your supermarket.
Yeah.
Right? And you guys are probably seeing it too now that you're out of high school. The economy's not helping us at all.
It's not real good.
Right? So now you got to make a choice. What do I spend my money on? Well, I gotta fill my gas tank so I can go to work and make some money and support my family. So things like that, like it's hard. It's a hard choice to make.
That's what I kind of wanted to talk about that because like I always think that it's like you gotta choose your suffer because you're either gonna not eat healthy, not take any consideration into your health, and you also might be suffering when you do choose to help your health because you're going to have less money in your bank account, but you're going to be rewarded with a good life because
you're going to be healthier.
Yeah.
And that's going to help a lot because now when you get to be in your 50s, 60s or 70s, you don't see the drastic breakdown of the body that some people do because they were just running on this food pyramid that is carb heavy. So
and they work to
they work
themselves to the ground.
exactly. Yeah, like
They just fall apart.
right. When are you gonna go out and enjoy?
And you
yourself?
know what's like really, it's so bad that, and it's taken our society so far, which is this eating bad. It's like when I explain to people like what I eat, they're like, "Ooh, that's disgusting." Like you eat steak, you eat eggs in the morning.
Yeah.
You put a raw egg in your smoothie, and they're like, that's disgusting. I can't even eat eggs.
Yeah.
And it's like, what's wrong with you?
Uh-huh. So, like I've gone back to raw whole milk.
Oh yeah, me too.
Yep.
And now
And raw cheese too.
think about this, okay? You know, when you put an egg in a frying pan, it goes from clear liquid kind of, right? It's gelatinous a little bit, right? But it goes then to a solid white and a yolk, depending on how long you cook it. Heat denatures proteins, okay? That's a really easy known thing. That's what pasteurization is.
Okay.
When you pasteurize milk, you're using the heat to change the protein structures in the actual milk. Your two proteins, whey and casein, okay? The problem with that is because you're denaturing them that way, and I also believe because of the excessive amount of antibiotics that get pumped into animals so that they can be in a mass area and then mass milked and mass fed and things like that. We're getting a lot of transfer through the cattle and the milk to our kids. And if you don't need, the reason pasteurization came around is to make foods last longer and not preserve. But it's not a necessity. If you keep everything clean and don't excessively store food that's not preserved. Now there are older ways of preserving, like pickling, which is really good. Okay, for millennia, humans salted meat, and that's how you saved it, and you could use it later. You could bury it, you know, and then you're getting good probiotics, things like that, right? So you're right. We have definitely gotten away from what healthy foods are supposed to be and how we should be eating, things like that.
How good is that raw milk, though?
I love it.
It's amazing.
So good.
Where do you get it from?
I get it from Apple Valley Creamery, which is up in East
We used
Berlin.
to go there. There's a place up there closer. I don't know what it's called, but it's $5 for a gallon. It's amazing because that Apple Valley was kind of expensive.
Yeah, it is expensive.
But it's $5 a gallon. I run up there maybe
That's
like
awesome.
once every 2 weeks.
Because I have to buy the half gallon.
Yep, and it's like $6.75.
Yeah, to me it's worth it.
Oh, yeah.
But I agree. Like anywhere you can find a couple of cents.
You ever get any of their heavy creamer up there?
I haven't gotten that. My mom has started eating the yogurt that they sell up there.
Okay.
And mom and dad have also jumped onto the raw milk. And I grew up drinking lots of milk. I love milk. I was never lactose intolerant until probably the last 4 years. I started getting like bubbles, and I'm like, what is that? I just didn't like it, and it didn't feel good. And I think the stress of my job added into that whole problem, and so I didn't have necessarily the best gut health. I got off the pasteurized milk, jumped back onto raw milk, 0 problems. Day 1, 0 problems with raw milk. No gas, no bloating, no upset stomach, nothing.
Yeah.
So, and to this day, I love milk. So
I do a little raw milk, throw a little bit of maple syrup in there, a little bit of salt.
I like raw honey, mostly because I like getting the probiotics, and I get local raw honey, so it's a little more beneficial for the flora and fauna that we have locally. So
yeah, I put down a lot of raw honey too.
Yeah.
And then I got this place. It's called Olive Branch. They sell like all these natural.
Yep.
They sell elderberry juice in there too, so I got some of that. I get some of that every once in a while. It's expensive.
I've got my mom doing dandelion tea, because she's always had, I think since I have a set, two brothers that are twins, and you guys have met my mom. She's 5'0", 113 pounds soaking wet. She took a set of twins to full term.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's
It was
wild.
like, yeah, right.
Yeah.
But ever since then, she's had gallbladder issues. She never ate very greasy foods or fatty foods, and when she did, she had problems. Well, I've got her on dandelion tea to see if we can just kind of clean out her gallbladder a little bit and hopefully get it to operate a little bit better for her.
Yeah,
So,
I've seen stuff on that dandelion tea before.
yeah. I think that's another, and I'm not trying to go, 100% crazy holistic.
Yeah.
I'm not accusing anybody of anything either. I'm just saying we have lost probably some serious bodies of knowledge about just the natural remedies that we could utilize, because they don't make money,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? So that to me is a concern.
Well, it's like the sauna and the cold plunge. Like you were talking earlier about the heat acclimation. Like our body is meant to withstand severe temperatures.
Yeah.
And then people start doing the sauna, the cold plunge, and they're like, "Wow, this like is actually really benefiting
And
me
it's
both
so simple.
physically and mentally."
Yep.
And it's
Just
like
hot and cold.
you
Yeah.
do the cold,
That's it.
you do the cold plunges.
Yep.
Um,
Actually, this every Thanksgiving we do our own little polar bear plunge. We go up to New York to one of the little lakes off the Hudson, and my daughters and I all jump in the lake.
oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so
I actually
it's
my
fun.
Tough.
My
It is
mom's
a little
plunge.
tough, but it's fun.
Yeah, my mom's biggest fear is the cold plunge.
Yeah.
And she listened to the Gary Brecka podcast.
Good.
And she's like really like she's all in on the nutrition and the health stuff too.
Yeah.
So last night, she made it in the cold plunge to her neck for I made her do 10 breaths, and then she got
Yeah.
out. And she got out and said that's the worst thing I've ever effing done.
Oh,
But
your mom said that?
yeah,
That's crazy.
I'm telling you, she hates the cold so much.
That's how
Yeah.
I feel.
This is the story that actually got me interested in cold hot fluctuations. Okay, our body is not meant to be plateau flat, even keeled. It's meant to actually operate very efficiently and well with what's called homeostasis. And homeostasis is basically it should be more of like a sine wave, dips and or peaks and valleys. And his last name was Bird. I forget what his first name was. He was one of the guys that went down to the Antarctic for the first time. This is in I believe, either 1800s or just around the turn into the 1900s. They got stuck. Their ship got stuck in the ice, and they couldn't go anywhere for like 3 months. Bird is the only one that didn't get frostbite anywhere on his body. At least that's the story that I read. Everybody else in the crew got some kind of frostbite, something. Well, guess what Bird was doing every day? He was going out and taking a snow bath. He'd get off the ship, he'd strip down, get in the snow, rub himself all down with snow, go back up into the ship, and then warm back up.
Yeah.
And the fluctuations of homeostasis are very important, because then you can tolerate more. Okay? Yeah. And in our simple first world lives, we don't handle things very well.
Not at all.
Especially extremes in the open, right? Outdoors and stuff. So.
Well, it's like whenever sorry, I cut you off. Well, whenever I take a hot shower, I get out and I'm cold. Whenever I take a cold shower, I get out and I'm warm.
Yeah.
And then it's like, whenever I take a cold shower and then go hunting, it's like if once I warm up in between that, I don't get cold.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
as quickly.
Yep.
I think I like shifted like way too far one side. I can't do the cold, but like I'll sit in the sauna for 2 hours.
Yeah.
But it's like also the years of weight cutting and sitting in the heat
Yep.
like every night.
I think you just need to do the cold though.
So-
the cold with the hot tub is way easier.
Yeah. So there's that option, but then there's also the option of if you want to just get used to it, take a regular shower, but then the last minute do cold, and then the next day or 2 days later do 2 minutes of cold, and you just keep progressing the length of the cold in your showers until you're fully accustomed to it and you can deal for 10 minutes.
Yeah, I'm just gonna end up taking 45-second showers. Get it done.
Well, now it's awesome because I just leave the bucket of water outside my house.
Yep.
I gotta
Yeah,
the
it's nice and cold.
The night temperature is
But
awesome.
wow, because I haven't done like a real cold plunge since last winter.
Mm-hmm.
Man, it would be like 43, 45 degrees the water temp, and I'm like, if this goes below 30, I'm gonna like in the 38. I'm gonna
Yep.
die in this. 3 minutes is hard. I was doing 5 minutes in like
Easily.
34-degree water last year.
Yeah.
Um,
I think it's an important thing too to let everybody know though that you have to build yourself up to that.
Oh, yeah.
You can't just go. For example, I'm taking cold showers right now to get prepped for that polar bear plunge.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not going into this completely unprepared, and I think that's where people sometimes get misinformed or they don't get the whole picture. You have to build yourself up to those kinds of things, and it's just
Yeah.
like practicing. Like you don't just go walk into a jiu-jitsu competition without practicing.
that's what I did.
So
Well, that's what we did with the cold plunge. I never did
Yeah.
a cold plunge in my life, and now we're in there for 4 minutes.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, your buddy, well, Austin, one of our buddies, and he did it. But he got in there, and it was like he looked like he was gonna die.
yeah,
He-
right.
It was like, yo, calm down. It's like,
Yeah,
And
he's
he
got a
couldn't.
heart
He
attack.
couldn't.
well,
right.
like we have like, whenever I bring them over, like we do the cold plunge in the hot tub. Like we just have such a good time doing it. It's something fun to do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Like I'll bring the tub over here sometime. You got a hose?
I do. Got a
Oh yeah,
hose.
we'll
Yep.
do it.
We
I'll
could
do it
definitely
here.
do that
That'll
as
be
an
the one
episode. That'd be fun.
exception.
Yeah, that would be sweet. Yeah. We'll wrap it up. That was a good episode. I
Yeah,
hope you guys
that
got a
was
lot of
solid.
value out of that. T Mike, we love having you on.
Thanks
it was
for
good
having me.
chopping it
It's
up
great
with you
to see
again.
you guys again.
Yep.
It's all